Alien dragon tortured with severe thirst for a century until human mechanic gave it its first drink. Word count, tilde 1500. Tags, alien dragon, human compassion, torture recovery, sci-fi rescue, bond, mechanic hero, ancient being. The station's deepest levels were considered cursed, not because of ghosts, but because of what was imprisoned there. No one visited Deck Z4 anymore. Most of the alien staff wouldn't even utter its name. It was said that only the condemned was sent to work there, and no one returned unchanged. But Nolan Graves wasn't superstitious. He was just a mechanic, and a desperate one. After being blacklisted from half the engineering corps for exposing a fuel embezzlement ring, this contract was his last shot. The Central Core facility offered room, board, and full clearance, but also assigned him to Deck Z4. Everyone had winced when they saw his badge. He descended the old elevator shaft alone, tools slung over his back, flashlight beam slicing through layers of dust. The air grew colder, heavier, and strangely dry. Too dry, like the atmosphere being stripped of all moisture. The silence was thick until the hiss of the final bulkhead broke it. Inside, everything was dark, except for the subtle, pulsing blue glow of ancient containment runes etched along a towering cage in the center of the room. And in that cage, chained to the floor by fused alloy cuffs, lay a dragon. Not a fantasy dragon. No, this was alien. Its scales shimmered faintly like obsidian soaked in starlight. Its body was enormous, wings tucked against its sides, cracked and faded. The once sharp horns were dulled and worn down. Its tongue hung limply from a parched maw, lips cracked, chest barely moving. Nolan froze, breath catching. He could hear something now, an almost imperceptible rasping. Not a growl, not even breathing. It was dryness, a sound made by something that hadn't drunk in years. He dropped his flashlight. The dragon's eyelid fluttered slightly. A whisper echoed in Nolan's skull, not in words but in feelings, suffering, time, unbearable thirst, silence. It wasn't hostile. It was pleading. Back at his bunk, Nolan scanned the archives. No files mentioned the dragon, not even the classified ones. But ancient logs, over 110 years old, reference an entity Blackstyle sealed in isolation due to psychic disruption. It had been locked away after a war Nolan had only read about in outdated school texts. Sealed indefinitely, it said, no contact permitted. He stared at the line. Dehydration recommended to suppress mental influence. No hydration cycle authorized. They were starving it of water. For a century. He returned the next day, against protocol, with a pressurized canister of water and a siphon tube. The dragon didn't move as he approached. Its eyes stayed shut. "Hey!" he whispered, unsure why he was talking to a creature that big. I brought something." He carefully threaded the siphon through the bars and into the dragon's mouth. The creature twitched, flinched, but didn't attack. It took nearly a minute before it drew a single slow gulp, then another, then more, trembling. Nolan swore he saw the cracks along its lips smooth slightly. Its chest rose higher. A slow, trembling sigh escaped its throat. Then, for the first time, the dragon opened one eye. It was a shimmering galaxy of gold. Nolan returned every cycle, each time with water, sometimes flavored with minerals. The dragon never spoke, not in words, but it felt. Every visit greeted him with a wave of warmth, curiosity, and eventually something he didn't expect, affection. He named it Asvaran, Old Earth Draconess for Silent Star. Asvaran's health improved slowly. Cracked scales hardened. Breathing normalized. And Nolan noticed something else. The station's climate began to change. Condensation appeared along pipes that had been bone dry for years. The station's recycled humidity improved. Lower decks felt less brittle. Water levels stopped randomly disappearing. He realized Asvaran hadn't just been suffering thirst. It had absorbed moisture psychically, draining the station dry through a subconscious survival mechanism. It hadn't meant to. It had been starving and afraid. One day, as Nolan adjusted one of the cage's power inducers, alarms blared. Guards swarmed into the room, weapons trained. A gold-clad administrator with too many medals and not enough soul stepped forward. "You've been violating containment protocols, Graves," he said coldly. "Providing the entity with hydration. Your access is terminated. You'll be reassigned after questioning." Nolan stepped between them and the cage. "It's not a weapon anymore. It never stopped being one. It's alive. And dangerous." Behind him, Azvaran growled weakly. The room trembled. Sparks burst from the cage emitters. "You see," the administrator said, smug. "Hostile." Nolan toned, placed his hand against the energy field, and whispered, "Don't." A long pause. The rumble died. Guards exchanged glances. Then, something impossible happened. The cage's runes dimmed. The field flickered, voluntarily, and the ancient metal cuff unlatched and crumbled to dust. Azvaran stretched its wings for the first time in a century. It looked down at Nolan, eyes glittering with something close to gratitude, then turned its head toward the guards, and bowed. They couldn't explain it. The administrators hushed everything up, of course. Azvaran was moved, not to another cell, but to an observation habitat, with Nolan assigned as liaison and caretaker. Some whispered that the dragon had bonded with him. Others theorized that the hydration restored more than just body, maybe memory, maybe identity. All Nolan knew was that Azvaran no longer felt like a prisoner. It felt like a friend, and every time he brought it water, Azvaran lowered its head, closed its massive eyes, and shared a thought through the bond they now quietly shared. "Thank you for remembering I was alive."